Hi everybody, welcome to week 7. Unbelievably, time's cracking on. So today on your online lecture, we're going to be looking at converged newsrooms, what that term means, how things have changed, particularly over the last 10 or 15 years across the country in different news organisations. And we'll also be taking a look at your two assignments. So we'll be going into a bit of detail about that because the first one's only 3 weeks away now, and whilst the second part is due just after Christmas, sort of in January, it'd be good for you to start getting your heads around it and maybe even making a start on the second assignment as well. So first off, just a bit of a reminder about the editor's code. I've mentioned this before, particularly early on in the first couple of weeks, and it's imperative that you do read this if you haven't already. It's the code by which online and print is governed. There's various clauses that we all must adhere to, including things like accuracy, how we deal with children, privacy, and also in the bottom here there's a handy little panel which explains all about the public interest, what it is, and how it relates to the various clauses. So please do take a chance to have a good read through that because it'll govern not only what you do here at university but also throughout your journalistic career. So it's only one side of A4. It's available in Blackboard, or if you go on to IPSO's website, that's the Independent Press Standards Organisation, you'll be able to download a copy there and have a good read of it really, because it's very important if you haven't already. Okay. So I'm just going to talk a bit now about the two assignments and how you can prepare for those, and just make sure you're all familiar with the machinations of both of the assignments. So, okay, assignment 1. It's a big chunk of your final mark for this module, 70%. It's a news writing test, and we've been doing quite a few of these over the last few weeks, so I think you're pretty familiar with the format of these and what's expected. Be an hour and a half, and you'll do this test at noon on Thursday, December the 2nd. It'll be an online test, so you'll be doing it remotely, so you'll need to find a quiet place with a good connection to do this. And just a note about similarity, we will be monitoring this very closely. We do have software which will pick up if your work's similar to somebody else's, and then we'll take action if we do find a high level of similarity. So normal exam conditions apply really. Make sure it's all your own work and you're doing this alone. Assignment 2, 30% of your final mark for the module, and this involves a critical analysis of a news story but also a log, and that'll need to be handed in by 4 p.m. on Monday, January the 10th, 2022. And like I say, it possibly seems a way off, but it's a good opportunity for you now to start thinking about that, gathering your thoughts ahead of that. Feedback and grades will give you, as usual, 15 working days later, so that's not 15 straight days, that's 15 working days, so Monday to Friday, and that doesn't include things like bank holidays or the 3 university shutdown days, which is relevant to assignment 2. So there we go, that's a broad outline of both parts. So let's have a look in a bit more detail about assignment 1. So 70%, it's an hour and a half, noon, Thursday, December the 2nd. And we'll do a few more of these over the next couple of weeks before the actual test, which takes place in week 10. As you know, it's online, and I've just spoken quite a bit about similarity, so just remember that even when you're doing the test. So just to stress, it's online, so you don't need to come in, you just need to find somewhere quiet with a good connection, somewhere you won't be disturbed, somewhere you can concentrate. and just 3 weeks to go. It's amazing how quickly these modules go, really. So we're on week 7 now. It seems like yesterday we started, but there are 3 weeks to go. So if there are any areas that you're struggling with, if you're still struggling with things like differentiating headlines from intros, for example, you need to have a word with me about it in the workshop over the next couple of weeks, and then do a bit of work on that. For those of you that are pretty comfortable with how you're doing, refine, practice, and just revise the news writing tips. There's plenty of documents available in Blackboard for you to go over, and revisit the earlier exercises as well. You can redo those, finesse those, make sure your structure and your style of your news stories is as good as it can possibly be. Okay. Assignment 2, say 30% of your mark, and it comes in 2 parts. So the first is a critical analysis of a news story, and the second part is a log, which again involves looking at more news stories, and also includes looking at a council meeting online, and that needs to be submitted. So there's no exam with this, it's a submission, and that's by 4 p.m. Monday, January the 10th next year. However, if you want my advice on this, I'd try and crack this before Christmas if you can, then you can relax over Christmas. So don't push it into the background, this second part. Start having a read of the briefs and having a think about it as well. So let's just talk a bit more about the 2 parts then. So the first part is a critical analysis of a news story, and that needs to be 800 words long. So not too lengthy, but there's quite a bit you need to get into that. So what we'd like you to do is choose one news story that was published at any point during this module, and it needs to have been published on all main publishing platforms, i.e. in print and online and on social media, and published by the same title on all platforms. So you need to pick a story, for instance, in the Daily Mail, the Guardian, the Sun, Liverpool Echo, the MEN. Doesn't matter what story it is. There's hundreds of stories been published. I've been on this module. But you need to pick one story, and you need to make sure that it's been published in print and online and on social media. So same title, published on the main 3 platforms. So print, online, and on social media. And what you're going to do is you're going to compare and contrast the way the story was treated on the 3 different media platforms by the same title. You're looking for the similarities and differences, as well as the positives and negatives in the coverage provided by each version. And you also need to explore the context in which the story was produced, using what you've learnt from the module. So it's a proper analytical look at a single story published on 3 different media platforms by the same title. So, for instance, you might pick, a stabbing that's been featured in the MEN. So you get hold of the print version, it can be on the front page or inside or wherever. Then you need to look at how it was treated online. So you need to find it on the MEN website, and then you need to have a look on Insta, Facebook, Twitter, see how that story was promoted on social media. Okay. So some of the things you should consider are what was included in the content. For example, graphics, text, audio, pictures, video, links, and why were those elements included? Why were they chosen by the journalists in the story? What did they add to the story on each of the platforms? And what techniques does each version of the story try to attract readers? So it might be different in print than it is online, and it may be promoted or projected entirely differently on social media as well. And think about the sources and the interviews that they used. Again, they could well be different across the three versions, but try and have a look whether they're treated differently on each of the platforms. How did they achieve a fair balance in the story? And all the differences in writing style, tone, and length on each of the three versions of the story that you look at in print, online, and on social, and why. So discuss why. So the treatment, could well be different in print, could be different style, say in the Sun front page story, than there is online and on their social. Okay. So some other issues to consider. How do the different versions of the stories complement each other? How does a reader benefit from each publishing platform? Why would they use it? Why would they go to online and not print, or print and not social? And how does a publisher benefit from each publishing platform as well? What's in it for them? What sort of readers do they attract? And, what sort of revenue will they gain from each stream as well? How do they make money? And how does the coverage relate to the wider issues? And this is a good chance to include some academic references to back up your thoughts. So a couple of good ones here to look at that I'd recommend are the Online Journalism Handbook by Paul Bradshaw, and also worth a look is Journalism Principles and Practice Journalism by Tony Harkup. And it's also worth having a look at journalism.co.uk and the BBC Academy as well. Some really useful thoughts on there. So if you have a bit of an explore of those books and also online, you might find some good tips and advice. So quite a lot to think about here. Also, just a few tips, things to avoid. So you've got to choose a story that was covered in all three media platforms. So don't choose a story that wasn't. So if you find a story was just used in print, not online, then don't use it. If you find that the story appeared online but not on print, don't use that either. So it's got to be covered in print, online, and on social as well. And it shouldn't include coverage on broadcast media, radio and TV. So you're looking for print, online, social media. It must be a news story, please. That's what I'm looking for. Not an opinion or review or a sports story. So it's got to be a news story. So make sure you just keep an eye out for those things before you decide which story you're going to take a good long look at. Okay, things to include with your analysis, and these can all be placed in the submission form you're looking at. So you're looking for a readable PDF JPEG image of the print version of the story. So you need to get hold of the actual physical copy of the paper in which your story has appeared, and then once you've got that hard copy in print, copy the MEN, Sun, Daily Mail, Guardian, whatever, and then take a picture of it or scan it in and paste it into the submission. You'll also need to take a copy of the link to the online version of the story, and again links or screen grabs of the social media posts related to the story. So a bit of gathering of content there on your part. So in particular, I'd look out for the print version first off. Make sure you've got that print version, because there's no use spotting a story that's online, realising it's 4 days old and you can't get hold of a copy of the relevant paper. So I'd start with the print version first if I were you. The 800-word critical evaluation of the way the story is handled in print, online, and social media. You need to reference any references you've made to academic literature using the Harvard referencing system. So have a look at that if you haven't already. And there also needs to be a bibliography as well included. Okay. So here's a completed form, basically. So this is what you're looking at. Once it's done, it's quite small, but if you have a look in Blackboard, you'll see a bit more of that. So have a good think, basically, about both elements of the two assignments. So you got the first one, the news writing test. So think about your strengths and weaknesses. Practice, practice, practice. Revisit some of the slides we've done. And then for the second part, you do need to start, just casting a few thoughts towards that, really. Even though it's not due in till January, you don't want to be in a rush with that, because there's quite a bit to do in that. And like I said earlier, my advice to you would be to try and crack it and finish it before Christmas if you can. Okay, that's the end of part one of today's online lecture. Have a break, come back for part two. Thank you.